Good afternoon. Today is July 9th, 2018. It's about 5:10 p.m. and this is the meeting of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee. And to my right is Councilman William Lutz and myself as chairman, Bobby Phillips. And we've got a couple of items on our agenda here. Excuse me. And number one is staff is recommending council regard increasing the authorization for roadway paving. And emergency legislation is attached to this, and is Mrs. Rhodes or Mr. Titterington who's going to start this off?
Mrs. Rhodes can answer the technical stuff, but just very briefly, you authorized $800,000 for the road repaving program earlier this year. We opened bids for those and have awarded a contract. That work is expected to be done, begin end of the month, early August. As a separate authorization, the North Market Street reconstruction project was authorized last year. It has, the road portion of it has been substantially completed. It was at least a month earlier than we expected. We have the additional funding as okayed or verified by the city auditor within the capital improvement fund appropriation this year. And given that the work was completed earlier, the contractor is gearing up to come in and do the $800,000 worth of work. The funding is there, and 2 of the 6 next streets that are on the list that you see on your report would be offshoots on North Market Street. We are asking for consideration to increase the authorization from $800,000 to $1 million with an additional $32,000. So the authorization was $832,000 because there were a couple of projects that were in addition to the general road repaving program. So our request would be to have an authorization of $1,032,000 for this year. And we are requesting emergency legislation because of the timing of the contractor being ready to work at the end of the month.
On North Market Street, due to the early completion, was there any savings on that?
No,
were there
the
any?
Contract was the contract.
Was there any premiums that we paid that we had a clause of early completion? Or
no, I don't believe we had any change orders or anything on that. It went fairly smoothly. Maybe a couple of minor ones, but nothing that cost money. The project is not complete because the intersection is not, the new stoplights and the new mast arms are not up. Those will be probably into September because of the subcontractor and ordering and the fact that it's the steel poles. But as far as it being open for business and the paving part of it, the utilities, etc.
So this additional $232,000 is the same contractor.
It's an additional $200,000.
Excuse me, 200.
Same contractor would add that to the list of streets that he would be doing for us this season.
All right. I don't think I have any other questions, Mr. Lutz.
A couple questions. I mean, with the increased authorization, I assume the project doesn't have to be rebid?
It does not, because it was bid formally
Okay.
already.
I guess my second question is in the future, would we still expect to spend roughly $800,000 a year on resurfacing, or will we go for $1 million here on out?
That's our $800,000 is our target minimum that would keep us on pace based on the evaluation we did of all the streets and where we're at on the ratings. Certainly, if there's opportunities like this to increase that, we will look at that as part of the recommended budget for 2019.
Okay. I'm just curious, like in terms of if we spend $800,000 a year, how many how long would it take in order for the list to get completed as compared to $1 million? Are we saving a year, 2 years?
That really hard to tell. We'd have to look at each road individually because we have, the roads are rated 3 different ways. Well, there's 15 different ratings, but they are classified 3 different ways. They're either local, tertiary, or, tertiary, secondary, or primary. And so each type of classification of road has a different expected replacement or reconstruction schedule.
Okay.
Some road, the local roads, I think we're at 15 or 20 years versus the primaries, which we're targeting for 10 years. And so when we rated those this year and we charted them all out, we kept that in mind, and that's how we know today that the 800,000 at today's dollars will work, at least for the next 5 years. Now, the caveat always is weather permitting, and what does the freeze-thaw cycle do, and wear and tear in general, because of the unique weather that we have here in Ohio.
All right.
And we have gone from 600,000 to 800,000 the last 2 years, 800,000? We've upped that?
At least.
At least.
And one of those years in there, we did actually do a supplemental and had
Right.
$1 million instead of 800,000.
So we're gradually increasing that, just there's cost of asphalt, oil products, et cetera. Other
And,
things.
this is not a perfect, it's not a perfect rating system, nor is it a perfect timing, because there may be 1 or 2 streets in this list that had, if we didn't know that there are other projects coming up, and timing throws it off, or Vectren is doing some of their work, and we're trying to time the reconstruction of a particular section of road to match that.
Okay.
But this is probably as fine-tuned as we can get.
Okay.
Anything
That's all
else?
the questions I had.
I have a
So-
question. Patrick, what is the 32,000 for?
It is for the senior citizen center parking lot and the section of cemetery driveway.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions from the audience? Any other members, council folks, any other people in attendance? Mrs. Rhodes, do you have any stellar bits of knowledge to impart on road improvement? No?
Just one question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Terwilliger, could
Coming
you
here,
please come to the microphone and give us your name and address and official title? And
John Twilliger, 1145 Cloverdale Drive. On the way here, I saw that Cricket now has pedestrian-activated flasher lights. Are they there to be plugged in, or are they working? Cool.
They are
Thank you.
working.
unrelated item, but it's good to know. Thank you. No, good.
It's road related.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, again, any other questions for anybody? Okay. Your pleasure on this item?
Let's move forward.
Okay, it's unanimous from the committee members that are present to go ahead and proceed as staff is requesting on this item. And the second item?
Second item is asking for authorization for us to submit an application to OPWC, which is the Ohio Public Works Commission, for funding the Riverside Drive Phase 3 improvement project, and to execute any of the agreements to make that submission. Phase 1, as you recall, that was back in 2000. That was from Adams Street to the drive in front of the cemetery and community park. Phase 2, which is under design now, which will be from basically community drive out to Orchard in that area, and Phase 3 is the next phase of this. We do have an estimate of approximately $1.3 million with a request from OPWC of $600,000. And so we are asking for not only authorization, but also emergency legislation, given that the due date is July 23rd, And we wanted to make sure we had the most accurate estimates, because in the past, with the lag between the initial thought process and finally getting them, inflation has really taken its toll in the past, and so we wanted to fine tune it first.
So the 1.3 is inclusive of the potential PWC 600,000.
Yes.
And the existing water main that will be replaced with a 12-inch line, that is just within that construction piece, not an extension or anything?
Correct. That would just be repairs and
Any other
replacement.
water issues in that general vein of water mains or sewer or anything else, that any work that we need to do there?
So actually so water, just for your information, started in 2014. We looped it north of Riverside in the old county home, and so it came down with a 12-inch. In 2000, when phase 1 was done, it was brought up with a 12-inch. So it's actually critical, this is critical to continue. We got a 6-inch main sitting there now, but we need to increase it per our water master plan to 12-inch. So we'll continue that with phase 3, and that'll pretty much loop us back in with a 12-inch all the way around. So that'll be a second feed up the North Market, Nottingham area. Sanitary sewer, we'll be doing improvements with sanitary sewer right now along Riverside. There are a couple of properties that don't actually have access. There are a couple of properties also that actually have access to in their backyard. But we plan on, as part of phase 2, to get sewer at least to Orchard Drive. So if and when in the future we can serve Orchard Drive with sanitary sewer. And then stormwater, there is no stormwater out there. We do have the river right to the west. We are entertaining the idea of doing some kind of dry wells for stormwater instead of piping it all the way to the river. So that is what we're doing for stormwater.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Lutz?
I did have a question, and I guess it's more about some of the things the Utilities Committee is going to talk about on Wednesday, but I'm just trying to understand the whole OPWC process. On Wednesday, we're going to be talking about something also OPWC related. If we go ahead and adopt both measures as being requested, does OPWC favor one over another? Or do both applications kind of stand on their own merit? I'm just trying to understand if maybe, does some of this need to be prioritized?
The Wednesday discussion will be our participation in a project that the county will be applying for with OPWC. Each OPWC district does things a little bit differently in how they allocate funds for those kinds of projects. We have a very good relationship with the county, as well as the relationship we have with the other cities and how that money is allocated.
Okay.
So this one's not going to compete with that project, and as far as we're concerned, when we look at our priorities, we're looking at those kind of projects that probably are going to be multiple phases. If you think about it, we've done McCaig in several phases, Riverside, North Market was a 2-phase project as well. And so we try to, I know the county asks us for at least 3 years out, so that, and that's part of the inflation issue that I was talking about before. And so they try to keep a long-term schedule, and barring any kind of disruption at the state level, maybe this program is financed through voted bonding, and so unless there was a hiccup there, it's pretty consistent.
Okay. All right. So we're not going to get into, I could assume that, if the thing we'll talk about Wednesday, there's more partners and it's seen in a better light because you've got different participation from different folks, and this is just kind of a standalone one community project. I'd hate for us to lose out on this one if the other one is seen in a better light because of that. And so, but if they're going to be on their own merits, I've got no problem with this.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question.
Ms. Zoda?
I'm just wondering, when does Phase 3 due to be done? Or started?
Well, that would be designed next year for construction in 2020. 2020, 2021, that area, that timeframe.
And with, it's almost 20 years since Phase 1 was done, why are we now doing two phases real close together when that phase was 20 years earlier?
I don't know the history because I wasn't here then, but there was some kind of disruption where they had to go from Phase 1 to do a different project, and so it kind of got
Yeah, I just wondered,
sidetracked.
that was just a
And I
curiosity.
believe there were some issues with looking at Phase 2 because some of the properties along the route on Riverside are outside of Troy. And so I think there were just some complexities, complications that came up, and another project came up, so it just kind of sidetracked it.
Just wondered.
Mrs. Baker, please.
I would like to understand a little bit better why, when we are working in this area, we are not including sanitary sewer down Orchard Drive, which is a cul-de-sac off of Riverside. As I understand it, they're saying now it'll be delayed again until sometime in the future. So I would just like to know a little bit more about that.
That's actually a question I was going to
don't know that that's what
ask.
we were saying.
Yeah, it's not necessarily going to be delayed. We're looking at it. It comes down to budget, if we have it in our budget. But then also, just making sure that the contractor still feels, we really haven't talked to the contractor or anything, make sure that they can do it because Orchard's very narrow. And so to put an 8-foot, 6-foot deep sanitary sewer, and then all of a sudden we have Riverside Drive closed and all broke up, we just want to make sure that we're allowing access. And so it's not that we have completely like pushed it off for the future. It's like, it doesn't affect this application, and so we're going to get more into it during design. So that's it. So we've actually kind of started the conversation with some of the residents, Tim Ray being the old water treatment plant superintendent, to kind of get the feelers out and start the conversation with sanitary. Because as you know, once sanitary is available, they could be forced to tie in from the health district.
That was an additional question. I was wondering if we do put it in, they are required then to.
We don't
come
have
on
the
board.
teeth, no,
Health
it's all health district. It goes back to health district and their Ohio administrative code that they fall under, that they have the teeth to actually force it. We don't really, we want to, but we want, if we can get everybody to voluntarily tie in, that's the way we want to do it.
Sure.
So we've started that conversation, and it's not that we're not necessarily doing it, we just, at this point, we want to see how the budget fell out and how we were with everything, so.
I know it's been put off.
Yeah, we just know that it's also going to lead us to, because the road is so narrow, it's going to lead us to, overlaying pretty much the whole road, and so, it just starts to snowball that, you think, oh, we can just put the sanitary sewer in, well then, all of a sudden, you're doing 500, all of a sudden it's growing, and so that's what we wanted to see where we were at with the budget.
Good question, Mrs. Baker. Anyone else with any additional questions? Okay. What is your pleasure with this one?
Let's move forward.
All right, then it's unanimous of the committee present to move forward as staff is recommending on this and
With emergency.
with emergency. And Mrs. Rode, one additional question. In those additional conversations, then potentially, if things were able to be worked out, we're looking at a reappropriation down the road or an additional item to this, or sewer and that sort of thing,
Well, this-
on Orchard.
This would be an
For
appropriation
construction.
for construction, so it's a future year budget anyway.
Okay, gotcha.
And we'd be
It's not
coming back for you to ask for requests to bid and to authorize the construction contract, so it'd be a part of that discussion.
Got it, okay. A separate item is what, a separate item and not a tag onto this.
It probably would be all rolled into this construction. We would get the best price having the contractor out there all at one time.
Yes, but it would have to be a separate item, starting the bidding process and that whole, not the whole process over again.
It would still probably be bid under Riverside too, and just be noted that it would be including Orchard Drive sanitary.
Okay,
Is that what you're?
Yeah,
And
that-
we would come back to council requesting authorization for that.
right, okay.
Yeah, but just to clarify, this is just asking to submit, and the 600,000 is what
The
is at
request.
stake here,
Right.
and that's not going to increase if we add
Right.
additional costs.
Right, yeah, no, I understand that. Thank you. Okay, so let's proceed as staff has recommended or requested. Any other, excuse me, any other items come before the Streets and Sidewalk Committee? All right, then we are adjourned. Thank you all for attending.